Hello, dear friends. There is a new age of human endeavor coming, and a lot of people are feeling it, uh, not just spiritually inclined people, but people from all walks of life are feeling the hope for a new age and the need for mankind to come into a new age. But what most people don't realize is that this hope and this need has been with us through the entire age of Adam. It goes back to the very beginning. And we know this because of historical writings, and we see it in the scriptures, the biblical scriptures, because the hope of the new age is actually the same thing. It's synonymous with the Hebrew ideal of a messianic kingdom. It's the same thing. But so this is very old because the Old Testament we know goes back 4,000 years. And it actually, this hope and need of a new age of human endeavor actually goes back to Cain and Abel, the sons of Adam, who expressed two very different visions for a new age of human endeavor. They both were looking ahead, but they had very different approaches. And so in this talk, I'd like to shed a little bit of light on this idea of a new age and on the different visions for it that there have been since the beginning of this age, because this is very important right now. Um, Things are building to a head in our society, in our world right now, and the tension that we're all feeling is the climax of these different visions and approaches to the new age. Um, so let us try to understand that human beings are, on the one hand, very, very similar, that we all are made of the same stuff, and yet in this age of Adam, when we were given the independent individual power of being able to discern good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil, um, we have had, we are similar and we are the same, but we have had many different ideas and visions of what human life is about and what its best outworking would look like. Because many people have felt throughout this age that this is not the best we could be doing, that it is, we're living it, we're alive, we're surviving in this world, but we could be doing better. And many people have felt this throughout the age. So there are, in the world of Adam, there are these tensions between these different visions of what mankind's best version of himself looks like. And this is why the hope of the New Age goes back to the beginning, because the hope of the New Age is actually the vision of what man's best version is. And so we see the tension right from the beginning with Cain and Abel. We see that Abel was a man who had a vision for the best version of mankind, or the New Age, as being a spiritual man, as being a man that was in harmony with God and with God's law and with his fellow man, and was not a violent creature, but was harmonious and peaceful, and built a world. Man could build a world that was based on these principles. That was Abel's vision. Cain, on the other hand, had a very different vision, and that vision involved human strength, and it involved human power and human control. In other words, the vision of Cain was also a vision of man's best version, but it was a vision that involved an elite hierarchy of man controlling the rest of mankind, based on the idea that not everybody was equal, that certain men were smarter and stronger and more able than other men, and that they should rise to the top of human society and control human society for the good of everybody. That would be the best version of mankind. It would be the best world, the best age of mankind, of human endeavor, is if this ruling elite controlled things. And as the story goes in the Bible, Cain right away had this vision and began to implement it. And he did this with one very telling act in the beginning, and that was the murder of his brother Abel, who he saw as having a conflicting vision for where mankind was heading. And he wanted to nip that in the bud right away, and to make sure that his vision came to pass. And so he got rid of Abel, and he began to implement his vision of where mankind should go. And that's how this age began. And the history of mankind is very clear that this coup of Cain in the very beginning, this powerful implementation of his vision, has dominated human society for the entire age. It has been carried throughout the age, and it has been always in power throughout this age. And this was basically how it looked as human beings progressed through time. It became as if it was an actual reality view, to where people just said, well, as the centuries passed, this is how life is. And and that there's no sense in having any other vision because that's unrealistic. But this actually uh, never was carried to the fullest extreme. People always have had their spiritual inclination within them, like Abel had. And many people have just not been able to stuff that down inside of them to where it it had no expression. They Many people have felt the way Abel did. And even though the controlling power of our world has always been in the hands of Cain and his vision and a controlling elite. So this is the other version that has been carried throughout this age is the new age vision of Abel, and it has never been extinguished. It has always been a very real potentiality for mankind. Somehow this has always survived, even though the Cain vision has been in control. And so there has always been this tension. And we see this tension being displayed throughout history. We see it with the formation of a godly nation 4,000 years ago called the nation of Israel. This nation was built on the premise that Abel's vision needed to be perpetuated in our world, and it needed to have expression in our world. And that's what the nation of Israel was all about. That's what the calling out of Abraham and the raising up of the Jewish people was all about and has been all about. And this was, you might say, it was a testimony to the vision of Abel. And the tension has always been that the Cain world of the strong ruling elite that wants to establish their vision has always felt threatened by the other vision, the spiritual Abel vision. They've always felt threatened, and they've always tried to eradicate it. And so we see in history that the nation of Israel was, from the very get-go, hated and persecuted. And they tried from the very beginning to eradicate it, just like Cain did to his brother Abel. But this was a vision for the new age, and it couldn't be eradicated. And so here we have it, 4,000 years later, the same vision, the same tension is still going on in our world. Cain and the ruling elite hierarchy of our world that wants to see a new age of mankind in its own image is still in power. But the tension that we feel right now is that the Abel vision is getting very strong, and the Cain vision has not been able to eradicate it. There have been many developments throughout our age this present age that have been very important to the outcome that we're feeling right now. They've been very instrumental. And there has been the formation of the nation of Israel, and there has been the uh, giving of the knowledge of God's law that came into our world, which Abel embodied, but had not actually, um, he hadn't actually brought it into a kind of expression. He embodied it. But the Israelites brought God's law into our world in full expression and codified it into writings. And so this was a major development because it gave the Abel vision a great deal of cohesion and strength, and propelled it forward. And from the very beginning, this was a visionary endeavor. The earliest Israelites, Moses, wrote about a messianic kingdom that was to come. So what we see is that you can go back to the very beginning of the age of Adam and find the hope of a new age. Cain also had the hope of a new age, and his vision was not limited to this age, to this world, but Cain's vision was very different. And it was not a messianic vision. It was a vision of complete and utter control of the ruling elite. And but since that has never actually been manifested in this age, the Cain camp has always looked forward to a new age when mankind is actually perfectly harmonious in this vision of Cain. But the messianic vision has also been there. And another development that took place was a splitting of the Cain camp. And this splitting happened quite a long time ago also, and has had different forms of expression, but most often it has been downplayed. In other words, if you were to ask someone in the Cain camp what the dominant view is of the New Age, there would only be one response. But in our world today, what we're seeing is that there's actually two responses of the Cain camp. One is the old school of strength and domination and violence and control, and that's still here, obviously. But there is another camp, another split in this camp, and that has gained great momentum in the last couple of centuries. And this camp, this other side of the Cain camp, is what might be called humanistic, enlightened camp. In other words, what this camp foresees for the New Age is similar to Cain's vision, except for one thing. It doesn't involve control, and it doesn't involve oppression of any segment of society. It involves enlightened democratic processes in which mankind is still moving in his own strength, but brings about a new age through enlightenment, through human intelligence, ingenuity, science. Um, but this is not the Messianic kingdom. This is not to be confused with the Messianic kingdom. The Messianic kingdom has its own vision, and it's strictly a spiritual vision of mankind. And this humanistic enlightened camp is not that. It's human strength, but it's human strength coming out and expressing itself as democratic process, as nobody controlling anybody else, but rather human beings becoming enlightened to the point where human society reflects that with harmony, peace, prosperity, etc. So there are actually, in our time, there's actually three visions for the new age. And it's all happening in terms of vision. It's not, nobody is saying that the age of Adam is going to last forever. Everybody feels that there is something better coming for us, but there are these three distinct visions. The Cain camp sees a new world coming in which control is and total domination is without rival, and the humanistic enlightened camp sees a new world coming based on human strength, but with much more parity among the peoples. And thirdly, the messianic camp is envisioning or coming forth with its vision of a new age based on spiritual values, on spiritual harmony, and on a spiritual outcome of human endeavor without any human strength, whether it's Cain or whether it's the new liberal view of humanistic enlightenment. The spiritual outcome of the messianic kingdom has no ideas based on human strength at all. It's strictly a vision of mankind coming into a completely transformed state of consciousness. And so as we think back on some of the developments, we see this splitting of Cain's camp, but we also see the messianic camp going through not so much changes, but going through some refining views of vision of the new age. In the very beginning, the Israelites had just a very fleeting vision of the Messianic kingdom. It had very little substance to it. But as the age has gone along, Jewish scholars have developed that vision and given it more more detail, um, but it hasn't always been correct. It has been in many ways based on or it has deviated from the original vision because of um, human aspects, human corruption, human um, hopes and dreams and needs. Um, so there has been a developing vision uh, in the Abel camp, but it has not always been pure. And and then something really major happened in that camp, and that is when Jesus came on the scene. Because what Jesus did was basically take all of the human corruption out of this vision and establish it as the pure vision of a new age, of a new messianic kingdom in all its glory. He brought it into light and expression, and he gave it great impetus and power. He lent it a great impetus and power. And when we study the teachings of Jesus, we see that not only was he the embodiment, the human archetype of the new man in the new age, but he was here to help us. He was here to help all those who were inclined along the visionary line of Abel. And he was a huge, his life was a huge development in our world, because he gave power to a movement and a vision that had no power up until that time. And he gave impetus to it. And he basically proclaimed that the new age was beginning back when he was here, that the age of Adam was finished, and that it was not going to, it might continue in appearance for a while, but that the new age was very much coming, and the messianic kingdom. And the messianic kingdom was displayed not as a kingdom of control and dominance, but a kingdom of spiritual enlightenment, spiritual life. And that is what Jesus showed us. And then when he left us, he basically left us with this powerful hope through his resurrection, that a hope based on the fact that not only was the new age going to come according to his vision, according to Abel's vision, it was going to come, but it was also going to be unstoppable through the evolution of human consciousness. Now, the evolution of human consciousness is also at work in the humanistic enlightenment camp. So this is where there has been a certain degree of confusion, because the humanistic enlightenment camp has uh, uh, also given expression to the evolution of human consciousness with science and with knowledge, with creative vision. These things are part of the evolution of human consciousness. So there has been uh, an aspect to that in their camp, but they have not uh, they have not understood that the messianic vision is is even greater, even higher than their vision. They have not understood that the new age cannot have human strength as its motivating power. It has to have a different um, source, and it has to have a different uh, kind of power underlying it. And so this faction of the humanistic enlightenment movement has been responding to the evolution of human consciousness, but they have retained um, some of the Adamic consciousness modes that cannot uh, usher in a new age. Only the messianic vision can actually usher in the new age of mankind. And this is what Jesus showed us. And um, this is there for everybody. This is there for everybody to get on board with. It's just that human beings have been clinging to less than pure motives for so long that most people are not inclined to to look at the messianic vision as real or as powerful enough to usher in a new age. Um, this has been the major problem. Of course, the Cain element of human society has has been exposed uh, shamelessly as being uh, very unspiritual. But the confusion has come in with this other branching off into the humanistic enlightenment movement, which has some of the appearances of the messianic vision, and yet cannot actually carry us there because it involves human strength, the human strength of knowledge and of science, and etc. And that alone cannot usher in the new age. Only the spiritual power, the transformative spiritual power of human consciousness evolution into its Christ form, into its messianic form, can do that. And so that's what we are on the threshold of right now. And Jesus proclaimed it 2,000 years ago. Um, so these last 2,000 years have been building and moving us toward this climax of tension that we're feeling right now. Um, three camps moving toward the new age, three camps vying for what the new age is going to look like. Three camps, three visions, um, not two, not one, but three. And that's been the great tension that we feel. Um, but it's not going to be like this forever. And my view is that the messianic vision is the only one that can really carry us there. Um, the other two visions, with their human strength orientation, are have been shown themselves to be subject to corruption, human corruption, based on the workings of Adamic consciousness, based on the fact of evil existing and tempting mankind throughout this age. Every revolution, political revolution, that has taken place in our world in the last, especially the last 300 or 400 years, each one has been basically an overthrow of the Cain camp by the enlightened humanistic camp, with the vision that things would now be better for mankind, that things would now be more equal, that everybody would have a better life. And each one of these revolutions corrupted itself within a very short time, because of this weakness in human character, according to our outworking of Adamic consciousness. So only the messianic vision puts forth the idea that mankind needs to come out of Adam, out of Adamic consciousness altogether. And we need to come into a new state of consciousness that is embodied in the Christ, in Jesus, um, in every Christ aspect of human endeavor that we can envision. Only this camp can deliver that. And so the entire new age coming to pass has to do with the evolution of consciousness into the Christ state, and the leaving behind of the Adamic state altogether. That includes both the Cain camp and the enlightened humanistic camp. And this is what people have had so much problem with, is that they basically, the world of man has been, it has been caught up in the idea that human endeavor is strictly human. It's a faithless camp, and it always has been. Even the humanistic enlightened camp is faithless. It's not based on any kind of reality outside of man's strength. And faithless has been exposed over and over again as being temporal, and as being a path of human suffering. And so only the messianic vision of a new consciousness, of an enlightened consciousness, of a consciousness of the Christ, can actually deliver us into the new age. Because for it to actually be a new age, it has to break with this this attachment, this Adamic attachment to human strength. And so the tension that we feel is that there is going to be an actual rising up, an actual takeover of the messianic vision for mankind. And some people would say that there's not enough people to populate a new world that belong to that vision, but there actually are enough people, and there is still time for many other people to join. Um, all throughout this age, people have been getting on board with this, even before Jesus. Um, Abel got on board with it. Many people from the very beginning of the age have moved into the Christ state of consciousness, the vision for the messianic new age, all on their own, through their own consciousness, spiritual inner activity. And they have gained not only the vision, but they have actually gained impetus into the transformative state of Christ consciousness. And believe it or not, these people are being, even now, everybody who has moved into that transformative state in their own lifetime, in their own world, inner world, are being preserved to come forth in the new age. So it's as if this age of Adam has been a harvest age, harvesting all those who are drawn to this aspect of human life, of of the new consciousness. All those who are drawn to that and who have made inroads toward that um, have been harvested throughout this age. So there's going to be a great harvest, and there's going to be a great uh, coming forth of all those that have been harvested. So there is going to be a new world with an ample population of human beings. And there's still time, my friends. There's still time to put aside the vision of Cain, to put aside the vision of the split off vision of humanistic enlightenment that depends only on human strength. There's still time to move toward the Christ and to experience the transformative evolution of consciousness that will be the qualifying aspect of the new age and of who is going to populate it. So the tension that we feel right now is real, and it has to do with the fact that the new age is coming very soon, and that there are three camps vying for who is going to populate that new age and how that new age is going to look.